One of the consistent themes of the left these days is to attack conservatives and attack Republicans for somehow undermining democracy. They're passing voter suppression laws that undermine democracy. They're engaged in partisan gerrymandering that undermines democracy. They want to uphold the filibuster, which is a restriction on democracy. And there's an interesting article I want to discuss that is in the New Yorker by Louis Menand. Louis Menand's a smart guy. I've actually crossed swords with him a few times before. He was one of the early intelligent critics of illiberal education, my very first book out in 1991. And I think at that time, Menand was at NYU. He's subsequently been at Harvard. He might still be at Harvard. But in any event, he's got this essay in the New Yorker called American Democracy Was Never Designed to Be Democratic. And I was reading the article and kind of laughing through it because he's right. Now, let's see what Menand is trying to say, because he's trying to give a left-wing message to the left. But the message happens to be one that we can heartily endorse, even though we're coming from the opposite end of the political spectrum. Basically, what Menand is saying to the left is, listen, you keep complaining that the right is undemocratic, and you're acting as though we have a pure democratic system in this country. America is a kind of democracy across the board, and the right is somehow acting in a sort of way that subverts that. And Menand goes, but America's never been a democracy. The founders weren't believers in pure democracy. America has democratic elements, but it also has Republican elements. And quite frankly, it has very clearly undemocratic elements, by which I mean elements designed explicitly and deliberately to cut against democracy. And Menand's point is, isn't your beef, he's telling the left, not with the right, but with the American system itself. So I think what Menand is calling for is maybe a re-examination. He doesn't really say he wants the American system to be like overthrown, but I think what he's saying is let's focus on the problem. The problem, he says, is really the American system. It's in the Constitution. It's the way the Senate is structured. The Senate was never structured to give people from large states and people from small states the same proportional weight. In fact, the Senate was structured to make sure that small states also have 2 senators, the same as large states. Why? This way the large states wouldn't simply politically overrun the small states. And partisan gerrymandering is, in fact, a 2-man game, by which I mean Republicans do it, Democrats do it too. The Supreme Court was designed and is, in fact, a kind of undemocratic institution, by which I mean justices aren't picked by election. They're nominated not for 4 years or 6 years, but they're nominated for generally lifetime terms. Their job is to affirm the Bill of Rights, to protect rights that are individual rights that were deliberately put in there into the Bill of Rights, into the Constitution, to be secure from majoritarian overthrow or from majoritarian overriding. Even the majority doesn't have the right. 95% of Americans don't have the right to tell you what religion to practice. 98% of Americans don't have the right to tell you what you can say or what you can believe. Your rights to assembly, your rights against unreasonable search and seizure, these are immune from majoritarian subversion. So Menand knows all this, and I think part of what he's doing is he's basically reminding the left that we have a system. Now, there are some conservatives who say, we don't live in a democracy. And the founders, while they do have statements where they kind of, they distinguish democracy from their own Republican system of government, what the founders are really doing is they're talking about ancient democracy, which was direct democracy. The ordinary citizen deciding directly about what the government should do. We obviously don't have that. We have representative democracy. We elect other people like Manchin, like Liz Cheney, and others, to act in our stead, representative democracy. So the American system has democratic elements. It has Republican elements. It has anti-majoritarian elements. And I would argue this is part of what makes the system so durable and so strong. When you think about revolutions, when you think about constitutions, there are a lot of countries that have had 30, 40, 50 constitutions. They overthrow one, they do another. They overthrow that one, they pick up another one. You have countries that have had revolutions that have failed. Think of the Russian Revolution. Think of the French Revolution, which failed when you had the terror, and then the overthrow of the revolution with the coming of Napoleon. The American Revolution has endured since really the 1780s. The Constitution has endured, not without amendment, but still there have been relatively few amendments. Again, going back more than 200 years. Why is that? There must be something particularly resilient about such a system. And I would argue that this is a system that, far from needing to be somehow abridged or changed, is a system whose virtues we need to rediscover and affirm.